For those who might not understand the intensity of the ideological battles on campus, what have you experienced as far as the intensity of Black Lives Matter or the progressives or socialists or liberals that you interact with?
Recently, I went to a Ben Shapiro speaking event at California State University, Los Angeles. I went there and faced a mob of professors and students and some staff members, and also some club members from some of the clubs on campus. And basically, I was just treated really badly, called different kinds of names, race traitor, Uncle Tom, just a lot of things, just really a lot of hurtful things that weren't true, but just used to kind of put me down and discourage me from simply attending an event. So basically to that, all I did was just record them. I let them speak and I let them get their hate and anger out and take it out on me if they really had to, but honestly, I don't take it hard. I don't take it to heart, and I feel like when they say things and they taunt me like that, you can take it two different ways. You can take it like, oh wow, like they really hate me, I should probably get out of this movement or not do this kind of things and face adversity head on. Or you can say, I do want to face adversity head on, I do want to debate these people and see why they don't like me so much. And I was getting so many things like, you're black and you should be on our side because they're racist Republicans and all this kind of things. And I simply don't believe that, because I've seen that there are no racist Republicans that I've dealt with before. And so I think break the stereotype every time, and it just hurts them that I'm like that, because I don't follow that crowd. I don't go with the crowd with them on that. So I definitely, with me, I think it's all about talking to them and educating them, but if they don't want to listen to you, just let them get the hate out, and your silence is enough.
In the beginning of my summer, we had we hosted Milo at DePaul. The DePaul Turning Point USA and College Republicans hosted them together, and it was full of hate. That's what I've come to realize when we watch interviews and you go witness it live. It's a lot of anger, and that's what I think is actually why it's really called me to want to minister instead, because I think people need to feel more love in their hearts, and it's not about policy, but it's about forgiveness and love. So when they come up and they're like, well, no, you just hate us, you hate people, you hate women, you hate blacks, you hate minorities, and I don't understand how people can feel that way when they don't understand the policy that we provide for them instead. So we've had people in fights, fist fights. We've had people spit on other people. We had a student tell me in California that she was tabling, and someone came up when the Ebola virus was very widespread at the time, licked her face and said, "You now have Ebola," trying to get us off campus and make us afraid. And to use something like that, it blows my mind. The number of times that I've had my friends tell me that they've had death threats is from people from Black Lives Matter activists is unreal. For someone who is so advocating for the life of others, they have no concern for people who we feel that yes, their lives matter, but it's along the lines of, well, if you don't say it out loud, then you doesn't matter. It doesn't, and so then they wish horrible things on people who don't agree with them in one aspect, when really we just want to help everyone out of what they're feeling and out of that anger and hate.
For those who are unfamiliar with how intense the campus environment is right now between the left and the right, tell us what it feels like to be a conservative activist who happens to be black in 2016.
Well, it's very shocking to people at first when I tell them that I am a registered Republican. I'm a conservative and I attend conservative activities like party meetings, things like that. So when people hear that about me, it definitely does shock them at first. I believe in free market capitalism, limited government, economic freedom, and those are three main things that are really close to my heart. that I like to educate people about too as well. Honestly, I've kind of gotten used to the kind of staring and like whispering from people because it's not really seen out from where I come from in California, in Los Angeles. So definitely sometimes I feel alone, but it's okay. I'm starting to identify other people that are like me and that can relate to me, that are conservatives.
So what happened to you, Mariah, when you tried to set up a conservative club at your college in Hagerstown, Maryland?
I was denied without actually putting in an application formally. I went to the administration and I kind of said, hey, I want to start this club. I just got back from a Turning Point USA leadership seminar and it really makes me want to get other students involved. And they told me that it was great at first, and then they kind of looked up what we educate students on and what we stand for, and they told me, no, you can't have that. We already have a political science club, so there's no need for yours. The political science club is just a general advocation and education of, you know, politics in general, reading the Constitution, knowing the Declaration of Independence, kind of being involved in every aspect, whereas Turning Point, we have a very clear mission and purpose on limited government and, you know, focusing on entrepreneurism and teaching students about the rising debt crisis that we have, and we really want them to understand that that's really important in their futures right now. I am a huge advocate for free speech. That was one of my biggest concerns, was that it doesn't matter whether it's right free speech or if it's left free speech, whether you're saying things that offend people and need them to go in a safe space. They don't need that. The whole point is to be able to say what you believe and say what you feel without repercussions of what it is. So for me, it was definitely, I should be able to do this on my campus. It's a federally funded school. We should be able to have our constitutional rights not stop when we step on campus.
Culturally, you're counterculture, as far as it feels like there's a lot of liberal progressivism around us, especially on college campuses. What's it felt like for you to be countercultural and even go to the extent of having a lawsuit against your school?
At first it was very uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable stepping on campus, and everyone kind of knew me as that girl. I definitely got some funny looks after we brought the local newspaper was there whenever we did our petition drive on campus, so I was labeled as that girl. I made the front page of the paper and everyone kind of knew who I was at that point, the girl who likes limited government. And then it started to gain a lot of support, and I realized that I was not the only person who felt this way. And after we had gained over 200 signatures on our petition, I started to realize that there are a lot of other students out there who feel the way that I feel, but they're just too afraid to speak up because of the problems that we face on campus from professors and extreme activists who come and they scream in your face and they spit on you, and it's extremely nerve-wracking to go out there and say, yeah, I believe in conservative government and I believe in limited government, and they just think you're crazy, and they're usually the ones who are a little crazy. So yeah.
So tell us your background. How did you come about being a conservative activist? Were you always a rabble-rouser?
I was not, actually. When I was in high school, I was decently liberal. I actually had conservative teachers, and I was like, no, you're wrong. There's no way you're right. But it was more on the lines of I didn't know the concept of the spending of when it comes to the government and the debt. I wanted to help the poor, and I wanted to be like, yeah, they should be able to eat and have housing, and I like that we help them. However, I was wrong in the mentality, the way that I believe that we should help them. So there's better things than government assistance to get these people out of poverty. And so that's when I realized I was probably 16 or 17 and I had my first job. And that's when my tax money started coming out, and I was like, well, I should be able to keep what I make. It's my money. I've worked hard for this money. So it's one of those things where you want to help people, but there is a better way, rather than throwing them into more poverty with government assistance and making them rely on that, rather than saying, okay, well, let's give you an opportunity and show us what you can do and teach you an opportunity to rise up. And that's what we're trying to do instead, which is something that now I've learned with Turning Point and learning about all the different ways that government just wastes so much money. But we could be doing other things, other programs. We could be reforming other programs rather than spending more money on welfare and, you know, Section 8 and the HUD, or the Housing of Urban Development. It keeps people in these poverty-stricken neighborhoods, and that's something that is so wrong. And the same concept with school choice. That's another thing that really, if students had the opportunity to choose where they wanted to go to school, a lot of them would break so many barriers that they face when it comes to succeeding in life, rather than having to depend on food stamps or their government assistance that they need to function every day.
It's definitely started in high school. I had debate club in high school, which was called at the time Junior Statesmen of America. And in Junior Statesmen of America, we had Winter Congress one time, and we had Senate and the House of Representatives. I was in the Senate, and in the Senate, we had different parties go around and explain why their party was the greatest party in the world. And I just fell in love with the Republican Party, and I never sided with them before in my life ever. But that day, I found out that I was more conservative than I thought I was. So that day, I became a born Republican. I was born a Republican that day in high school. So ever since then, I did my own research about it. Definitely, I found Turning Point USA on Twitter just because I want to learn more about it, meet people in the conservative movement. And so I definitely was like really open-minded to being a conservative at first. And I think it's tough for other people because they have that social pressure from either family or friends or people at school, maybe even their professors, to not actually like be openly conservative, even though they do have conservative ideas.
Mariah, tell us, what does it mean to you to be part of Turning Point USA, and what signs seem to get the most attraction and resonance on campus?
For me, Turning Point USA comes down to student empowerment and student engagement. There are tons of organizations on campus who don't draw students in. They kind of just tell them what to think, and I think that's something that we really try hard not to do. Is we're not telling you what to think, but we're teaching you how to think. So I know a lot of the times that a lot of students really like, especially when I'm on campus, is we have one phone board that says Republican, Democrat, or awake, and it's a checklist, and it just checks awake because we're not partisan. So it's one of those things where we're not telling you to think Republican, we're not telling you to think like a Democrat, we're just telling you that you need to be paying attention. And there are certain things that, oh, well, politics doesn't affect me. It does affect you. Every single day that you let a new policy or new legislation get signed in and you don't know what's happening, something is going to come back and is going to affect you in one way or another as a student, as someone who works, as a parent, as a child when it comes to taxes and your parents' taxes. People don't realize how much of an effect simple legislation has on their lives. So we've done a lot of nonpartisan rally signs across the board. And then people really just like, in general, that we take pop culture and things that are happening now and putting them into our phone boards. So we do a lot with House of Cards. We do a lot with Scandal. We have a lot, there's another one that we just have coming out now, and it's going to be for a fall release date. I'm super excited about this one. It's called Petty Little Liars rather than Pretty Little Liars, and it's a bunch of just politicians who have this awful history in career politicians, and they don't follow through with what they say they're going to do. And that's something that we really like to stress, is that, well, we have people on both sides of the aisle that aren't doing their jobs, and they need to be out. We need term limits, and that's something that we really agree with. And the whole reforming of systems is something that we can get along with on both sides. And when they see that we're for that as well, they're a little less turned off by what we have to tell them.
My favorite sign is Big Government Sucks, just because it throws people off when they first see it. So if I'm on campus and I have my Big Government Sucks sign, people are stopping in their cars, they're getting out of class, and they're looking at it, and they're just like, looking at my table set up in my posters, and they're like, Big Government Sucks, what is this? What is this all about? So it really opens the door and opportunity for me to talk to them about Turning Point USA. So that's definitely one that's like a big surprise to people when they first see the table, because no one's going to openly say Big Government Sucks until Turning Point USA said it.
There's another sign they use, I don't need government to succeed.
I think it's a very powerful poster itself, and the words are powerful because that can apply to the students, whether they're from Compton College or from Cleveland State, Oregon, or just anywhere where they're really, struggling in their community, but they don't necessarily need government to succeed. They can go out, they can take care of themselves, they can get a job, they can get an education. They do not need so much government help. And that's another thing that I love bringing, because I live in Compton. I love bringing it to the students out there who they actually have personal stories of their family members being on welfare, being on Section 8, using government assistance, but not just being on it just to help themselves, but honestly being on it and staying on it and using it as a source of income. And they're going to school so they can better themselves, so they do not become like their family members that abuse the system of welfare.
And when you're with Turning Point USA at these conferences, I saw you in Dallas at the Women's Leadership Summit, as well as this high school one in Washington. What does it feel like? Who are the speakers that get people really excited?
It's very empowering. It is, because you're in a room full of people that go through the same things you go through on their campuses, whether it is on a high school campus or a college campus. And also, definitely, I think I get a lot from the speakers that come. They're very well-rounded speakers that know what they're talking about. They have experience. I love Foster Freeze. I love Britt Hamachek, Joe Walsh. I love Ginny Thomas, just to name a few. Guy Benson. So a lot of these speakers, I definitely can pull and grasp from what they're saying. And they have experience in politics. They have so much experience in whether it's politics and government or economics that I want to get into. And so they can really help me out a lot with that. So I definitely enjoy the speakers. And I enjoy my Turning Point USA family, definitely, because they're just so positive and uplifting. Everybody is so hardworking, and even the interns, you never see them because they're behind the scenes working so hard that every conference just rolls smoothly. So it's really nice.
We have a lot of speakers that come in. Dallas was huge. Dallas was the best experience to be a part of. We had Tommy Lahren, we had Ben Shapiro, we had Carly Fiorina. Our classic favorite is Joe Walsh. The girls love Joe's energy, always love Joe's energy. Actually, Joe had to cancel last minute for the high school one, so I was a little disappointed the kids didn't get to really feel the energy of Joe, and he's such a face behind the encouragement in what we do. So it's one of the, it's definitely exciting. Joe's definitely a class favorite. We also had Sheriff David Clark was here for the high school summit. We had Nick Adams, who is he just finished writing, he just has his book that's published in 5 days ago. He became an American citizen from Australia, so it was very exciting to hear his story and to hear him speak. We have a lot of trainings from the Leadership Institute, which is great, getting the students to understand the concept of what a liberal bias is and how to recognize it, and then how to report it and deal with it, and then also how to we did a leadership training for them, so we taught them, what it means to be a leader, the characteristics of leadership, which I think going into your senior year of high school is extremely important. You are the leader, the freshmen look up to you, they want to be like you, so it's one of those things where leadership is definitely super important to them. We had some others at Dallas. We had Kimberly Corbin, super, very high advocate for the NRA for women's rights to carry. Due to a previous sexual assault that she faced. So she's a survivor, and she told her story to the girls, and they definitely, a lot of girls are moved by her story, knowing how personal it is, and so it's definitely a nice advocate for our Second Amendment rights as women, because people think that women don't need guns, but I think a gun is your best self-defense. If you know how to properly use it and properly handle it, and you're safe and you feel comfortable doing so, then that's definitely something I would recommend doing. Turning Point USA hosted their second annual high school activism conference here in DC. We had the students stay at George Washington, and we brought in a lot of our speakers, and one of our big speakers, and he wasn't controversial in our eyes. In our eyes, he says what he thinks and what he believes, and free speech, that's what we think is great. Sheriff Clark was talking, and we had a employee of GW basically,
George Washington.
Yes, George Washington, stand up and storm out, running our sound. And he started cursing up a storm and saying that Sheriff Clark was racist against his own. And so it was one of those things where I was like, this right here is the liberal intolerance that they say, well, we want free speech. We should be able to say what we want to say, and then when we say what we want to say and what we believe, no, you can't say that because you're wrong. No, you just disagree with me and you're uncomfortable. But the whole point of being, especially on a college campus, is to provoke free thought and to provoke uncomfortable feelings, because it either strengthens your opinion or you start to reevaluate what you've thought your entire life. And that's something that I think was really important for our high school activists to hear before they actually get onto college campuses and realize how indoctrinated it really is.
What advice would you have for young women who may not have the courage that you've had in your life so far?
Stay strong. Stay strong. Keep up the good fight. You're not alone in this. And at the end of the day, we're all humans. And I don't look at myself as being African American and female in the movement necessarily. At the end of the day, I just see like all of my colleagues, my coworkers, my Turning Point USA family, Leadership Institute family, my libertarian friends from Yale, and we all come together as one really and just help each other out and spread the word of conservatism in our own different ways and just educate people. And so at the end of the day, I wouldn't necessarily pinpoint your race or anything, because really it has nothing to do with the amount of knowledge and intellect you have to share with people.
I would tell them that it's okay to not be as outspoken as some of us are. I had a conversation with a girl actually at George Washington. She works for the university, and she said that she feels very uncomfortable speaking out on campus because of the massive liberal bias that she feels. And I told her that, you know, you don't have to physically speak out, but you can always, we have things like Hypeline. Our Hypeline is our news source where you can write for Hypeline and say your opinions on paper instead. So if you're too shy to physically speak and, you know, cause a ruckus, you can always write, and we have tons of other places to get involved. You can just carry stickers around or put buttons on your book bag. Little statements like that kind of say who you are without saying anything at all. So it's definitely something where you can spread a message of, you know, big gov sucks on your button and, you know, capitalism cures, rather than going around yelling, you know, big gov sucks in someone's face. You can just put on a button and everyone's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Where'd you get that? And then you tell them and you kind of spread the message, and it's one person to another, and you just keep passing it on. And that's how another way that I believe that our message transfers too.
What does it feel like as you interact with professors who don't agree with you?
I originally was very upset by it, and it was one of the things where I felt very singled out in my class. I was probably, back at community college back home, I was probably the only conservative in my class. And at first it was very nerve-wracking, and I was like, oh, he's gonna hate me, and I'm gonna be the only person who feels this way. And eventually it got to the point where he would actually call on me knowing that I was the only conservative, and he wanted my opinion out there because he knew I would give it. So it was to the point where I would start speaking and I would start talking, and I'm a firm believer in logic and factual information to back up what I'm saying, because I think that makes sense. So I'd start giving out those kinds of information, and students would then approach me and they'd be like, oh, so I heard you said this, and what are your thoughts on this, this, and this? And it's one of those things where, because I'm the only person who thinks that way, I cause other students to kind of reevaluate what their original mindset was from what the professor is telling them. So it's more along the lines of been a sense of, well, I don't want these students to feel that they're thinking this way because they were told to feel this way. We say that you know, we're not a think tank, we're a battle tank, and that's something too. Like with the energy we have to go out and we have to tell these students that what you're being told isn't always true, and they're going to tell you this because they have that part of power. They have a higher level where they think, oh, well, I should have to believe them because they're my teacher. We're taught to trust our teachers and our professors and our higher ups.
Lessons learned from what you've experienced?
I would think one is to just seek guidance from people, from older people, and get mentors. Have mentors. It's always great to have mentors and people that can teach you about things in life, whether it be facing people that try to discourage you, or it's going to an interview or anything like that. It's definitely great to have mentors even if it's like in your career field or in education. And another thing is, don't argue with your family about politics. It's never going to end well. My whole family, they're liberal. My dad is an independent. But yeah, the rest of my family is liberal. So I talk to them, and I love having discussions with my family, because it's not just, sometimes if I have discussions with conservatives, it's like, yeah, we all agree with each other. I get a little bit of input and I learn a little things from them. But for my family, I definitely like hearing from their side, and then like teaching them things, they teach me things, we go back and forth, and I like that kind of debate. So my mom, she loves Don Lemon from CNN, and like I talked to her about Don Lemon. I'm like, why do you like Don Lemon? And so we'll talk about like why she likes Don Lemon, why does she like Hillary Clinton. Then I'll tell her like why I like Donald Trump and why I like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, which she does like Marco Rubio a lot. She does, but we talk about those kind of things in a positive way. But don't argue, though. That's my lesson, is just don't argue about it. Just kind of stick to the facts and have that healthy kind of debate.
The first thing is to not display or hold yourself in a manner as if you're better than them. That's something that I think a lot of times we misconstrue a message. And it's not about saying you're wrong. It's about saying I understand how you feel, but let me tell you why I think what I think. And then let me tell you why I believe what I believe. And it's more of a productive conversation that way, to empathize first, and it kind of puts them off their guard and they kind of let their walls down, and then you can have that discussion. But provoking them right off the bat and saying, well, no, you're wrong, you're dumb, or things like that, it's not going to get you anywhere at all. And they're just going to continue to think that you don't like them and you don't like their kind. And as their kind, I mean liberals. Like, and it's not something that we're against. We're just trying to tell you, okay, well, you've been taught this for so many years, and let me tell you what I've done the research on and found out, and then we can kind of have a civil discussion here. But then as soon as people start throwing names or they start throwing vulgar curse words, you're not going to get anywhere. So at that point, you kind of need to realize that conversation's done and say, okay, well, I'm not going to change your mind, but maybe we can try this again another day.
What do you see down the road for your future? What do you want to do with your life after college?
I've been having a lot of second thoughts about politics in general. I really love it as a passion. I just don't know if it's something I want to do as a career. A lot of what I've been feeling lately is that I would actually like to take some time off, and I'd like to mission, which is something that my mom is okay with but not okay with. Her priority is my degree, and then I can do what I want to do, which is great. I totally understand that. But I think I would rather do something along the lines of Opportunity Lives does something where they go into poverty-stricken neighborhoods and they try and get them out of poverty with conservative policies, but they also do a lot of ministry in the neighborhoods and teach students about love and, you know, the power of forgiveness and grace. And I think that that's something really important, that it's not just about legislation, but there is something higher up than the government that can do more for you. So a lot of my time, I think, after I move will be spent, you know, volunteering and maybe campaigns, or, you know, being an activist on campus and getting